presentation contains materials that some may find disturbing, including failed businesses and lost investments. The goal of this presentation is to provide light entertainment and share insights for investors, as well as be respectful of the victims. I was on LinkedIn, as apparently everybody is, because what else do we do with our time? And I came across this post. I've spent 13 years in the health tech space, and this post about Pear Therapeutics filing for bankruptcy really hit me at my core. I did not work for Pear. I actually don't know anybody that did. Didn't use their products. But to see a big name in the health tech, digital health space go bankrupt was shocking to me. We'd seen layoffs, but nothing like this. And with enough time on my hands, I just had to figure out what happened. As I started digging in, the hits kept coming. More and more digital health companies were selling off assets and filing for bankruptcy. Some may say the bodies were piling up. My curiosity got the best of me. I am not a detective. I am not an investigative journalist. I am not a financial analyst. I am just a very basic millennial with a love of true crime and a lot of experience in the health tech space. So I decided to dig in and spent a lot of time looking through reflections on what was going on, the industry consensus, talked to a lot of folks, and today I'm going to talk through what I think happened with these companies. I'm going to focus the story on three big digital health darlings and what happened to them along their way. But let's talk about our victims in a positive light. So Babylon was a digital health company out of the UK doing digital-first primary care. They were amazing and incredible and a huge brand name, and they even came over to the United States later on in their journey. Pear was a pioneer, the first prescription digital therapeutic approved by the FDA, paving the way for many other options outside of the pharmacological space to be able to treat diseases through technology. And Olive, they were trying to reduce overhead and automate simple processes in the back end of healthcare using AI and robotic process automation to really save money and time for health systems. These companies are amazing. They employed lots of people and raised nearly $2 billion from investors, and they're no longer here with us. I dug in, I read press reports, I read the financials. I wanted to figure out what happened. I do not have this board at home, I promise. But trying to piece it all together from what the companies themselves said to what the employees inside the company said, I came up with three theories of what is happening here, three suspects that we can pin down as to why these companies failed. My three top theories are a lack of focus, encountering unexpected friction in the system, and a true challenge on providing value and proving it in the system. So I'm going to take you through this case by case and look at each one and what was the primary reason these companies failed. Babylon Health. Babylon Health was a digital-first primary care play. They were in the UK and really had a telemedicine model even before the pandemic. But they had trouble proving their value in the system. And in healthcare, you can have the coolest app and the most users, but if you can't prove economic value for somebody to pay for it and clinical value to actually use it in a clinical way, you're not going to go very far. GP at Hand was their UK product. It lost money on every member that was a part of the product, and they said it was because the value they were saving the system was in reduced admissions. And as a primary care play, they weren't able to recoup that savings. But when they moved into the US and moved into the value-based care space, where you would hope to see that reduced cost of care overall, they still weren't able to prove out that model. So not only were they unable to prove out the economics of their model, they had challenges with their technology. They had a symptoms checker, an AI-driven chatbot that was supposed to tell you whether or not to go to the hospital. And it had major flaws. It didn't have any peer-reviewed studies, and even when compared to other products on the market, it failed pretty miserably. They couldn't prove either their economic or their clinical value. They had other issues: acquiring failed assets, investigations into their care delivery, but the core inability to prove value really shone overall. Moving to Pear Therapeutics, this company was amazing. They were going to help solve substance use disorder and opioid use disorder through an app. How cool is that? But they really lacked focus. So they compared themselves to pharmacological options and therefore pharma companies when they IPO'd. So they had your traditional pipeline of R&D candidates in their S1. Now these are some pipelines for other companies that IPO'd in 2023. You can see that most R&D pipelines are under 6 candidates. That's so you don't have a ton of burn on R&D while you're still gaining traction on commercializing your products that are in market. Pear had 14 candidates in their R&D pipeline, and we're definitely struggling with commercializing their couple of products that were in the market. This led to high burn and not a lot of revenue coming in. And they weren't getting a lot of revenue because they were really having weak clinical validation and issues with traction in the market, specifically friction on getting providers to prescribe their product and then users to fill the product, as well as the friction on the reimbursement side. You point a lot to the friction on the reimbursement side, but if you don't have a lot of prescriptions to start with, you're going to have a lot of problem with cash at the end of the day. And Olive. This one's my favorite. I'm from Ohio. Olive, born and bred in Columbus, Ohio. So they're a lovely Midwest company. They were newcomers to the healthcare space and maybe didn't see some of the friction they were going to encounter when they moved into it. For those who aren't as familiar with the health tech space, Epic is an electronic medical record company. It dominates the market in large healthcare organizations as the electronic medical record of choice. They are also notoriously difficult to work with. They focus on interoperability standards only, nothing custom, and have an interesting approach to reducing the number of people who interact with their UI on the front end. I know this. I worked there. I was on the interoperability team. And so when you're using robotic process automation, you need to access the front end with your tools in order to automate processes. And Epic did not take kindly to that, really creating a ton of friction, of Olive driving adoption of their tools in big healthcare organizations. Now they promised a lot of growth to their investors, and so they got creative in terms of their contracts and overpromised and underdelivered during this time. Now they also suffered from a lack of focus. They raised a lot of money, and so to spend that money, they continued to acquire companies to build out their platform, even though their core wasn't gaining as much traction as they'd hoped. On top of acquiring companies, they did some other neat things like starting a VC firm, and they have their own scent, if anybody saw them at a conference. I don't think digital health is dead. We don't have a serial killer on our hands. We need to focus on the basics of making sure that a company is solid before we invest in it. I think that's the lesson learned here. So if you want to chat about healthcare, true crime, follow my Substack, or contact me, and remember to stay safe.